a way that's going to uniquely position yourself as uniquely qualified to be able to handle whatever the instance is that you're presenting yourself to address. And that's been a really fun journey for me as well. It is to really learn about everyone's story, figure out where they can parlay that into a position of strength, as opposed to all this imposter syndrome that we feel, where we have this jack of all, master of none, or we have a message that seems to just be lost in the crowd because there's so many others in our field or in our industry, these Me Too's that try to kind of corner the market. But no one can take your story, and no one can take these experiences that you've had, that you've learned from, that you can now position yourself as someone who's essentially an industry expert. And that's what I do through content creation, through coaching, through media placement, is I help you corner the market and be seen as the expert that you are, as that thought leader that you are. So as far as recent story, I've over the last couple months, I've tried to hone in on my target audience. The positive that I've learned in hindsight is that the suite of deliverables really haven't changed. But what I also learned in hindsight is that if you try to cater to everyone, you tend to reach no one. So I have honed in a little bit on the high-performing professional, specifically the professional athlete, post-career of being an athlete, on what they can do to help change the narrative for themselves, leverage this very unique story that they have, and be seen as a thought leader through extracting those experiences, identifying the right platforms, and getting them in front of the right people, all while clarifying their message in some way that's going to give that audience a reason to take action. So I wound up bringing on a former athlete, former New York Giant. I was a little conflicted because I'm an Eagles fan, but I'm letting that slide. But it's been going wonderfully so far. So just in the span of 3 weeks, I've gotten him a guest spot on 2 different podcasts. I've gotten him featured in the media, and I've gone through what's known as a brand script with him, where we've been able to identify the key beat points in his story to be able to use that as essentially the foundational piece for all additional content. So the next phase from here is essentially, what can we do to now repurpose this foundation into additional critical assets that are going to keep that sales cycle moving, whether it be an email nurturing campaign, whether it be blogs, newsletters, so on and so forth. So really excited about continuing that and seeing where that leads from there. And for those who are unaware, I'm also a story brand certified guide. That is based on Donald Miller's best-selling book, Building a Story Brand, where there's now a high ticket certification program that essentially gives us all the tools and resources that we need as coaches to help our clients really clarify their message and figure out a way where they can double down on that and reach the masses as a process. So next week, there's actually a story brand marketing live stream. Anyone who's interested, let me know. I do have 1 VIP pass left that's deeply discounted, and I'm hoping to build my own breakout cohort of at least 4 or 5. So please spread the word, because at a fraction of what it cost me to become a certified guide, you're going to get all the bells and whistles, essentially all the nuts and bolts of the strategy within this 2-day session next week. So again, thank you so much for having me. It's a joy to be back here in person after a while, and looking forward to reconnecting with everyone here.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for your story. Greg.
Hi, nice to meet everyone. My name is Greg Davis, and I run a business called Zola Creative. And what I do is I help companies transform their products into a sales engine. What that means is that I look at, to be clear, I look at services as products. I don't care what it is, whether it's consulting, coaching, whatever it is that you're doing, it's a product, and you need a product as a pocket. What I do is I work with companies that are struggling with how do they really position this product well in the market to understand really where their sweet spot is for selling it. Sometimes it's a product that's established and they've been selling things for a long time. They introduce a new product, can't be sold the same way that they built the original business. So like, how do you position it for this product, not just throw another thing into the mix? And then I'll focus on sales modeling. So kind of going back to like sales enablement, how do you do things around making your sales process more efficient? What can you do I come from an e-commerce background, so what can you do to make more of your sales online and streamline that process? And then ultimately, it's developing a marketing strategy. So it's like, how do you market the product effectively? And those are scenarios where sometimes I'll bring agencies in to help support it, or I'll do some of it myself. It kind of depends on the scenario. Now, as far as the, I guess, the story side of things, there's a lot going on this year for me that is kind of a good transition. So this year, I'm in the Jack's Chamber, and so this year I'm the 2023 Small Business Leader of the Year for the IT Council. And so, thank you. So what that is giving me an opportunity to do is really get a lot more plugged into the Jacksonville area. I'm a transplant, and I've been remote forever, so it's like it's a lot harder to get connected with people. And so being in the chamber has been helpful that way. And now the SBLY program has been really good. What that gave me the ability to do is to kind of pivot where I've always been largely on the consulting side. What I've started launching are training programs so that it's more do-it-yourself training programs, or maybe workshop where I can come in and coach. Because kind of going back to the story around wanting to fight with salespeople. You know, years ago I was brought into an organization because they said we have a marketing person, we want to get rid of them, they don't know what they're doing, and we need you to come in and kind of help pave that way and then bring somebody else in. Well, then when I started working with that person, I realized they're actually really good. It's just that they weren't doing the right things. Like they were just getting, too many different, directions, and they didn't even know what their sweet spot was. So in working with that person, I was able to actually turn them around to where they became a star employee for that company. Not only did they not only not get fired, they outlasted most of the other people that were on the board at that time that were saying we need to get rid of this time. So that's the thing to me when it comes to marketers, is that you get thrown to the wolves where marketing means something different. Each person at this table has a different version of what marketing means to them. So marketers have to be almost like a jack of all trades, but the challenge is that how do you really leverage that and use it for the best of your ability? So I have programs called the Left Brain, Right Brain CMO. It's how to take up and coming marketers, teach them how to CMO's mindset so that they know how to leverage data better, they know how to leverage technology better, and they can really be more effective as a marketer. I'm going to be, just for everyone's FYI, I'm doing a lot of work with the chamber right now. I'm going to be doing some workshops with the Business Ventures Group, which is Jack's Bridges program, if anyone's familiar with it. So I'm going to be doing some half-day sessions for chamber members. It could be open to chamber members as well as people that have attended Jack's Bridges. So, and now you're going to hear me today. The last thing in my story is just that I worked in the music industry. Before I got into e-commerce, I was in the music industry. And I used to work with a lot of international artists and did performing and writing. And I've always been trying to figure out how to get back to it, but I'm not going to go try to gig and tour and do like I did when I was younger, So it's like, how do I make this fit? So I've been developing this idea for a long time, and you'll see today is that, it's really trying to combine both passions around music and marketing, and how do I use that to educate people in a more entertaining way, get the message across, and hopefully make it a little bit more fun for you. So,
Cool, good, exciting. Richard, glad you could join us.
Yo, my name is Richard Amenia. My business is Rich Resource Group. We are a business consulting and coaching firm. And what we do is to take businesses that, wants to be profitable by streamlining their, operations. And what I mean by streamlining the operation is that we look at both their financial statements as well as how that relates to their operations in that business settings. And then also we help in training, coaching anyone from the C level suite to individuals that need that much help. Part of my story is being called one time by corporate to help this particular licensee who wanted to shut two of his businesses, but corporate didn't want me to close down those businesses because it's when you close it down, it's not good for that corporate brand. So they wanted me to see if I can find some missing link in that. So I went in there. The first thing they said is, Richard, we want to close this. We don't want to hear anything from us. I said, let me help you work things out. The first thing I realized was that they didn't have the information necessary to operate that business to become profitable. What do I mean by that? The owners, we're looking at their bank statements as, whether the business is profitable or not. So we have to train these people on their cash flow, P&Ls. I have a background with, accounting. So those are the two, places that we started training. And then we later on went to the individual businesses, and we realized that there are so many things that is missing. There weren't any systems, checklists and all of those things that you would expect that, as a business owner, you should have all these things. So I recommended that they should give us up to 6 months of working with them, getting things, together, and then ask corporate that after 6 months, if this person comes back and says, I want to close it, they should give him, his acceptance, allow him to close it. Well, thank God, after 6 months, he came and said, I don't want to close this business anymore. I realized that I need to do my work and then get, into the things of, operating well. Since that time, I've realized that I've been able to connect with a lot of, business owners who were first ashamed to be honest about saying, I don't understand my my cash flow. Can you help me with it? Because my accountant just gives me this tax returns and says, boom, this is what you have. And I look at my, my bank account and I think this is how much I have. But now, can you help me bring these things together? And that's what I've been doing. I relocated here to Jacksonville because of my wife. She lives here. I was in, Georgia, for a while. And then during that COVID hit, and so I decided to take a pause, a break. And then I went into Jack's Bridges. So I met Doug, one of the judges, he was, he was one of our judges at Jack's Bridges. And he said, hey, come on, to Coach Jack's and, check it out. And I did. And, been here happily. And just recently, he was able to link me with, one of his clients who needed some help. So I'm now working with that client also as well. So thank you all. I'm glad to be here and I appreciate everybody's, knowledge, and I'm ready to tap into that. Thank you all.
Thank you, Richard. Glad you're here too. Larry.
Nice referral. I had a little piece earlier, but I'll try to keep mine brief. You had me at New York Giants.
For all of it, they were getting.
I'm a huge Giant fan. I'm saying. Yeah, no, you're the Eagles fan. You've had some battles. No, thank you. I want to endorse a book. Doug mentioned, conflict resolution, and my leadership career. I think that Crucial Conversation book is really an excellent one. I use that a lot of times in my coaching teams. Coaching my teams. It's high stakes, opposing opinions, strong emotions. And I worked for a great boss for a long, long time, and he would always encourage me. He coached me very well, and I learned from him. He was a great leader. He would always tell me, take your emotions out of the equation when you're, issuing discipline, speaking to employees, people. They're people, number one, and I'll always remember that. And they have feelings, and so you try to take your own passion out of it. Just try to keep that at bay, and I think your success rate will go up in terms of what you're trying to achieve. My story, very quick, is I feel like I have always been an achiever. My whole through sports and through work and education. You're climbing a ladder. You're striving, and COVID hit. I turned 60. I was beat up in healthcare, so I took a break. I've been working some intern jobs in management since, but then I met Doug, and the key for me is I'm not ready to retire. So and my wife is highly encouraging me to do something. I think she knows me best, that I need to feel productive, and I want to help. So Jeff gave a really good talk about how do I leverage what I know, my education experience, and so it's marketable to someone else, and that's my challenge, and I'm looking forward to it. So I need something to do. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity.
You bet. Good. Well, Welcome all, great stories, every one of you, and it looks like we've lost a couple of our.
I know.
That never came back on. We didn't get a photo of them by any chance. Did we? No.
Actually,
You did?
yeah.
Oh, because it's on. It's
Yeah,
on-
no, I actually took one.
You actually took one. Okay,
Yeah.
that's thinking ahead. Alana is amazing. The amazing Alana. So what perhaps we need to do a photo now, is that
Yeah,
sort
that's a
of?
great idea. Let me
I-
get
Okay.
The photographer.
A photographer.
Christy, I think. would be
Yeah, Christy would be. Good. We'll try out the bookkeeper. And
Called into service.
yes. So what we'll do is we'll take a photo first. And then if there are any announcements, it'd be good to make any announcements as to something that's going on.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, maybe right. Yeah,
You know
that's a
what
good
about the
idea.
TV, but the-
Oh, well, you can do one on each side. Cause there's somebody on TV, but,
okay.
maybe each side.
This would be a good place to start.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, wait, I'm not in.
So I don't-
And you're not in either,
How can you tell?
Oh,
because
she's
you're
doing
not
it
in the pit. Oh, no, wait, I'm on.
This can.
Wrong camera, I got it, okay.
Okay, if you can move in a little bit and Doug a little bit, yes. Okay,
You're in.
Doug, go back a little bit. All right, perfect.
And then from the other side, if you don't mind. It's really just about looking like we had a really good time. more than anything.
And getting, your good side, whether it was this side or this side.
Yeah, right.
Ready? 1, 2.
Thank
wanna
you.
Look at them real quick?
I trust you. Sorry.
Have you do cards yet?
Okay.
No, they can pass some cards around too. That would be great.
You know what, here, give you a less bendy one.
Thank you.
You've got my card, you've got. my
Oh,
card.
thank you.
Huh? We haven't met. You haven't seen that thing from the last.
That's not, yes.
Yep, yeah, Jeff.
Thank you. That's one to Jacob. He caught it. Look at that. Oh, good catch. All right, super. So any announcements of any events you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I alluded to it a little bit in my intro, but there's a huge story brand live stream next week, May 9th and 10th. So Tuesday and Wednesday, pretty much full days, but essentially you're getting a crash course on the certification without the extra time, without the extra money, without all the, the hoops to jump through. You're getting the bare basics. And at the end of that 2-day session, you're going to come out with all of those key deliverables that I was mentioning that my client had in 3 weeks of doing business with me. So you're going to have a brand script, which essentially, again, is following the beats of your story that you can then parlay into content and additional thought leadership messaging. And you're going to get real-time feedback from certified coaches, as well as invaluable networking opportunities with other like-minded individuals where you can actually do business out of this too. So for anyone interested, let me know after this meeting. I can get you a discount code. And like I said, I have one VIP seat left too. Someone has sort of laid claim to it, but they have not committed yet. So that means that somebody in this room perhaps, or outside of this room, could be in the running for it if anyone is interested. But yeah, huge thing. They do this, I think, twice a year outside of the certification itself, where people that are story brand curious can have an opportunity to kind of get a peek behind the curtain there and see what it's all about.
Mhm. Excellent, good. Any other announcements?
My workshop's going on all the time, so
Yeah.
if you know someone who needs to be happier, just, send them my way. I got a workshop
Yeah,
for you.
yeah,
They'll
there you
still
go.
have it.
Yeah.
15 minutes a day, that's it.
Heidi, the happiness. Looking for another H word.
Hero?
Hero, thank you, that's it. Perfect. Yeah, happy Heidi, the happiness hero.
Heidi's hero journey?
You're Triple H. You like to wrestle.
Excellent, good. Now that we're all happy. I think we're all set, so, okay, any other Oh, and I'll make the announcement now. So, the June 5th Coach Jacksonville meeting will be with Dawn Hennessy. She's with the not action coach,
I don't know the name,
yeah,
but she's gonna be speaking about disc.
DISC. So,
The most accurate personality test I've ever taken. I've taken my share.
uh-huh,
It's like, how does this algorithm know me?
Yeah.
Is what they do. It's like.
right.
it's nuts.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, so she'll be coming here on this June 5th, which is the first Monday. All right, so with that in mind, now we're in Greg. It's up to you to entertain us, inspire us, and educate us on everything that you know, or no, not everything you know, but at least a small sampling.
Sounds good. My memory is shot, so it's like when it comes to remembering words sometimes.
Oh,
It's usually cheating or
interesting.
something.
That's okay, it happened to Ozzy too, so.
Oh, okay, there we go. I can play a little bit. All right. Here comes the one, the one. Here comes the one, that song, it's over. I don't get it, I spent 2 building up my mind. I don't get it, I waited for the talk to you. Here comes the one, the one, the one. Here comes the one. Some it's it's so
That was the happiest sad song I've ever heard.
so as I told you, like I'm with the Zola Creative, and what we focus on is product marketing. The idea of transforming our product into a sales engine, and as I mentioned before, it's about how do you position that product, how do you create a sales model that will be effective for that product, and then ultimately how we want to market it. And so, the reason why I do the music with this, as I said, is like my background was in music. And I just want to find a fun way to kind of get through people's head. Like I want everybody in the room to have more of a chief marketing officer mindset. Because when you think about your products as a marketer and really get effective as a marketer, it can be a game changer. Like, and today what we're going to talk about a little bit is around value proposition development. So that'll be the core of what we talk about. We're going to go through a little bit of a workshop so that you can kind of get a bigger picture of how I do this with clients. I mean, when I do these, usually they're like half day or all day sessions or more. But what we'll do is sort of an abridged version that you can take home with you, and hopefully it could be helpful. And so based on what I heard from everybody in the room, some of you will benefit more from it, some of you it'll be a little bit different. What I would just encourage you to do though is just kind of keep an open mind to, even if you're really well established, don't cut yourself out of the possibility of revamping what your value proposition is. Now, the reason I always say about value, sorry, here I'll do it. I gotta get this out. That's what it is. All right, please. No. Oh, sorry about that. So, yeah, so really the point being is that when you think about your value proposition, what a lot of people do when they're developing their value proposition is they almost start to go into resume mode. They start talking about, here's what I do, or maybe, this is how I do it, or you start talking about your experience and how long you've been doing it. And what I want to talk to you about today is about trying to get to what I call like the dream message. And to give you a little bit of a background on that, I want you to kind of think back to years ago, for those of you that had MP3 players, back from 1997 to 2001, MP3 players came on the market. And if you had an MP3 player, they were expensive. And if you were lucky, you could fit maybe an album or two worth of music on it if you were lucky. And so then in 2001, Apple comes out with the iPod. Now, what they could have said, what a lot of us would typically do is they'd say, well, we're a technology company. We invented the personal computer. That's why you should buy it. Or we've increased your memory, or, and made it better for you. Or, they come up with some kind of just catchy slogan around like, more memory, more enjoyment. What they did is they said 1,000 songs in your pocket, and that was it. And that instantly got everybody's attention because we were not even thinking, I was thinking like, should I get 3 albums on an MP3 player? They were like, how about your entire music collection on an MP3 player? 1,000 songs in your pocket spoke to everybody really clearly. They didn't have to go through all their tech specs and talking about how they do it and what they do. It was just the value, 1,000 songs in your pocket. That's what I call the dream state, or the dream message, really. So it's like, how do you say something so concise, so clear that it makes someone just get it right away? Where, yeah, you want them to always ask more. You want them to say, well, how do you do that? Or whatever your introduction or elevator is might be. But if you can get really succinct about what you do for someone and do that 1,000 songs in your pocket statement, it's a game changer. And I've experienced this myself. I went through, again, a bunch of hashed up different types of slogans and or messages or value props. And what it came down to is when I got the right one, it was like it just clicked and people started listening and they took notice. And so the thing about value propositions, and I say this on a product level, is that each of your products, again, remember when I'm saying product, I'm talking about service is a product, coaching is a product. Like I have a client who's in the mental health space and they do a lot of full service management for behavioral health units. I came in and helped them productize what their consulting picture would look like. And by just so they could really understand, like, what do you do and what do you don't do in this offer? That's already generated $1 million for them. And I just did it back in February. And the reason why is because I took what they did and worked with them to develop those value propositions so that when we went out and spoke to people, it was really clear what they do for people and how they solve it. Because a lot of us, intellectual property, we've been doing it forever. It's all up here, but you have to kind of get it out on paper to do it differently. And so I'm going to play one more and then we're going to go into the workshop. But this is a song I'm going to play for you because I want to show you that even again, if you have your value proposition and you think it's perfect, keep working on it because it can always change. And again, as you launch each product, it can be different. But I'm going to play a song for you that is just a different way of a popular song. And just by doing it different, it creates a different meaning. When I did this song years ago, I recorded for a studio and gave it to somebody to listen to. And they said they cried and they had no idea what the original was because it was just a different format. And that's what you can do when you work on your value proposition. So we'll do this and then I'll get into the workshop. Yeah. But now those things are gone, so self-assured. I thought I've changed my mind. I opened up the door. Right? If you think about the vendors of that, it's just like, this is exactly what. Again, same lyrics, same chords, just a different presentation. So think about that today as we go through this workshop. I'm gonna hand these pieces out, you can just kind of pass them around. Both sides will kind of go through this. There we go. You pass it along. So as I have on here, you'll see, I have those 4 levels just as a reminder. I have one more.
These are different sheets.
No, it's all the same, just front and back. So the front should show your 4 levels of a best-selling value proposition. So think about this again. Level 1, and this is where a lot of people start, is what do you do? So if I were to ask you what you do, you might say, well, I'm a coach, or I'm a whatever, and I say a lot, I'm a marketer. But that's where, again, that's not enough. It's not enough to be interesting. There's a million of you out there. So it's like, you gotta do something a little more unique. Then we get into level 2 and we're like, how do we do it? And again, it's a little bit more, but that's where we're starting to kind of get to the meat of how we do it. So maybe you're a digital marketer, maybe you're a brand marketer, maybe you're a sales consultant, whatever it is. Level 3 is where a lot of businesses think they achieved that dream statement, but they didn't. But this is where they stop. And this is because it's a lot harder to get to that dream statement. This is something that is like a lot of trial and error to get it right. And eventually it kind of pops. And again, you'll notice when it pops because people start noticing better. But you start saying like, why are you better at another? So that's where we start talking about, I've been doing this for X amount of years. And, I'm in this organization, I'm in that organization. You start kind of, again, it's all resume building. But that dream statement, that 1,000 songs in your pocket statement, that's the one that we're going to work towards. And so what I'm going to do is kind of go through at a high level. Again, this is a more in-depth training, but this is a high level version of just kind of like the things I want you to think about, because this is what I ask my clients to do on a regular basis. So think about a product. You might have multiple services or products. And kind of go through this exercise with us, thinking about that one particular product, because it makes it a little easier when you actually do it at a product level. You could do it at a brand level too, but again, I'm more of a product guy, so it's like focus on the product side of it. So first thing I want you to do is really think about making sure that you know your product. Because again, sometimes it's all up here in our head. We know it. We know that there's a need for it. We know there's a market for it, but at the same time, we almost haven't articulated it out loud in a way that is more effective. So go through the exercise of asking, just what does your product do? At a base level, it doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be fancy, just what is it and what does it do? And then go into, how do you provide access to this product? Because again, sometimes it sounds easy to people, but it's actually a little complicated, because you think about, well, how do I get involved with you? If I want to work with you, how do I do that? Do I have to call you? Do I have to go to your website? Do I have to fill out a form? Do you have to do some type of profile on me first? Like, what are all those steps that you have to do? Really articulate that for yourself so that you're thinking about how complicated is it to do business with you. And that's really what I'm getting at with this. I've talked about the e-commerce models. There are a lot of companies that do it the hard way still, when they can easily send somebody online. If you go to some technology companies that are doing a really good job of this from a B2B e-commerce standpoint, you might talk to a sales rep, and then when you're ready to make the purchase, they send you over to a website, go make your order there based off of what we talked about. Those are some really efficient ways to sell better, but understand just how complicated it is to do business with you, because sometimes there's contract language and it's just a nightmare. There's all kinds of red lines that you're going through it, especially when you're in the healthcare space, right? It's even more like it's a nightmare when you're in that world. So kind of document that stuff for you. Now, why is your product better than others or similar on the market? Really get down to it and be honest with yourself, like, why is it better? And try to remove yourself from it. That's the trick. Like a lot of times we say, well, it's better because I have this experience or I do that. But try to think of it a little bit more like it's a product. Like, if I wasn't there, if I could make everyone in this room be able to sell what I do, that's a powerful product when I can remove myself from it. So what is it that's so great about the actual product separate from what you are? And that's why it gets hard, because sometimes, again, we kind of self-identify as our products. So to go through that exercise and kind of figure it out. Now, why did you decide to make this product? Now, this is a tricky one, because a lot of us decided to make our product because we were leaving another job and we're like, hey, I can make more money doing it this way, for whatever reasons, or you just knew that there was a market for it. You knew, but at the same time, like what really drives you to make the product be what it is long term? Like again, the honeymoon is over. I left my job because I'm gonna be a consultant, or I'm gonna be this or that. When that honeymoon is over and you're stuck with just your product and the newness is gone, why is that product there? Because sometimes you have to kind of really identify that to keep yourself motivated. When people don't get it, then it gets a little demoralizing. But if you can identify again why you really did this, and again, try to remove yourself from it, think more about market problems and customer problems, you can get a little bit better of a definition. Now, I'm gonna pause there for a moment. Like any questions around that concept or thoughts you have on it, any feedback around that as an exercise? Do you find it hard to do for yourself? Like to identify your products that way at all? Yeah,
I think your point about how easy is it to do business with you? Because I've seen so many cases where the companies unconsciously make it very hard to do business with it. And yet it's not that hard. Just make it a little easier. Don't jump through as many hoops. Because that's part of it. That's part of the reason why people decide to do business with companies. I mean, look at Amazon. My wife and I yesterday, she had to return something. You drop it off at Kohl's.
Yeah.
I stayed in the car. She was back in 30 seconds. Done. I mean, they make it so easy to do business with you. That's part of why they're so successful.
it's true. And what's funny about them is they're a data like they're a data model. They're not even an e-commerce. I mean, they are an e-commerce model and how they do business, but they just want your data. That's like, I don't care if I lose money on the product, I don't care whatever way you have to ship it back, because I just want your data. You
Started
know?
off
I
by
mean, it's-
selling books.
Yeah,
That's it.
it's amazing.
And now I think they own the world.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, I mean, I work with a lot of different companies that all struggle in this area around, like you said, the complicated sale. Contract language
Ugh.
is just through the roof.
Yeah.
They don't have, and a lot of this comes down to, again, not streamlining. That company I was telling you about that I developed a consulting product. That's what's happening for them, is that they are going into every deal, almost like it's a custom deal every single time. They're still doing the same stuff, but they go through the same song and dance every single time. And so what we did was just really created this entire like grid matrix around what do each of these things do? How many hours does it take to do it? Because that's the other part of it too, when you're thinking about profitability, is that you can make a client happy if you kill yourself to do it, but you have to draw the line at some point and create some boundaries. And so when you can productize it and identify some of these things, it kind of helps you create those boundaries where you understand, was this a profitable deal to work with or not? And so that's a big piece of doing things like that. It's just knowing when where the boundaries are, when you have to ask for more money, because that's the reality, is that if there's scope creep in a project, and again, in the coaching world, I mean, I'm sure you all have experienced it. You've got clients that want to call you all the time or text you or email you, and there might be like things where you're like, hey, I need some boundaries. So again, it's like, I think a lot of coaches are good at this, but it's making sure that you have a package that they understand what they're buying. There's transparency behind that, so you don't get in that situation. That way, if you push back, it doesn't become an angry conversation as much as it's hey, just remember, this is what we did. Now, I do have a higher service for you if that's what you're looking for. You could upsell in that scenario, but again, just creating those boundaries. So I'll move on to any other comments or questions before I move on to. Okay. The next thing is knowing your customer. This is again where a lot of people get stuck. All right, so we often, when I say we, I mean everybody on the planet, every company I work with. A lot of times for that last question of the previous section, why do we build this product? It's because of us. It's because we see an opportunity, we see a revenue opportunity, we see some kind of sale that we can do. And so we start thinking less about the customer and more about ourselves. And so I've actually gone through this exercise with companies where they were like answering everything based on themselves, and like, no, like it's about your customer. And they're like, oh, I was just thinking about us. I'm like, yeah, like that's the problem. Like we're just thinking about us when we saw our products. So think about your customer and really get into the head of your customer. So think about this, okay? So I have like, what problem does your product solve? Now, again, as a coach, you have your areas of expertise that you're doing, but can you define when they've reached the level that you want them to reach? Can you define where they've actually reached that success? Now, there's going to be multiple stages. And so in some cases, when it comes to developing a product like this, You may say, you know what, I have a 4-phased approach. The first phase is going to be this, second phase that, which again, also kind of helps you have a longer retainer of working with that client. But they understand, was this a success or not? The worst thing a coach can do is work with somebody for 6 to 8 weeks or 12 weeks. And then the client still not be anywhere farther, right? They're not moving along. They don't know why they've been paying you now, because now they're starting to get frustrated because they've been doing this for a long time. And why am I here? So try to define for yourself what those stages can be, because that will help you again, just be a lot more clear about what you offer. And those services that you offer right now might actually become 4 different products if you could do it effectively, because now you're breaking it down to smaller sections, more bite-sized ways. It'll be a little bit more clear for people. So then when you say, why would a customer choose not to buy your product? I love this question, and I love asking people this, because this is the heart of the fact that you're not unique. And, you know, when I worked in the music industry, I worked with bands. I would do management things with bands, or write marketing collateral for bands sometimes. And every one of them, their original bio they was sending me was about how they were a unique band. I'm like, you're not unique. And here, if you are unique, no one wants to buy from you. Because think about this. I don't know if you're all familiar with like the pioneer settlers and the sheep when it comes to buying behaviors. They're the pioneers that are the ones that when new tech comes out or new something comes out, they don't ask questions, just I want it because it's new, right? Then you've got your settlers that are like, well, yeah, it looks like this might be good. Maybe I'll do this, I'll do it, you know. And then you've got the sheep, and I fall in the sheep category. It's like, I just want to know that it's been tested, it's not just going to go away before I put any kind of money into an investment like this, right?
Electric vehicles, maybe?
Yeah,
You know, right, you know.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
like the prime time, you know.
So the thing around that, when you think about the buyer personas, is that bands would do this. They think that by being unique, they're going to be more interesting to people. But the reality is that record label A&R guys, they were looking for the next U2 or the next, you know, whoever it is, like right now they're looking for the next Taylor Swift or the next whoever. That's who they're looking for. So if you tell me you don't sound anything like them, I've got a wife and kids and a pool and a house and all this stuff. Like, this is my job. I'm not looking for the unique thing that's gonna be really hard to buy. I want the thing that everybody just gets, you know? So don't be afraid to not be unique, you know? And when you think about why your customers wouldn't buy from you, you might be positioning yourself out of a sale because you're trying to sound so unique and so different because you want to stand out. They are actually scaring people away from wanting to do business with you. So think about that when you think about what your customers, why would they not buy from you? Is it because of cost? It might be, more expensive than others. That's good to know because that defines where you are, where your customer lines are. Talk about high performing professionals, right? So you're not looking for somebody who's, just floating. You're looking for people that are driven and dedicated. So that helps to know if you're too expensive for people. It helps to know that they wouldn't buy from you because maybe they're afraid of what you do. Or they're like again, the coaching world. I always equate it a little bit to like it's behavioral health and consulting at the same time in a lot of ways, because what you have to find is people that are willing to admit they can't do it on their own. There's a stigma when it comes to mental health and behavioral health services. The same thing for me with coaching. Well, that sounds a little weird. I don't think I need that. I can do this. I'm capable. So you've got to break down that barrier sometimes when it comes to those stigmas around coaching. And that's why it's important to understand why people wouldn't buy from you. Maybe they feel like it just sounds like, silly or whatever, right?
And Greg, can sometimes it be, I've heard this and I've actually experienced it where the person's ego gets in the way. Like you said, they don't want to admit that they can't do this or that they need help.
Absolutely.
I've seen that happen.
Well, and on that note, so think about who your customers might be. If you're working with a lot of men, probably have a higher stigma there because men traditionally are more about like, I got to do it myself. That's how I identify that I can take care of things. And that's how we think. I don't think women are any different in that scenario, but I just think that there are probably some differences around how open they are, maybe asking for help, whereas men feel like there's something it's beat into us as kids, like you're the boy, you're the man, you got this. So I think that like you have a higher stigma. So that might be in your messaging. If you're targeting a lot of men, you may have to figure out different ways that you maneuver that language so that it doesn't sound like a threat. It actually sounds more like a partnership, I think again, that's where it's just like kind of coming up with clever ways to sort of think about that. So that's a really good point. Stick on that though, I'm telling you, like you make your list Because each one of those is actually an opportunity to do a better job. So find out like I'll use Apple as an example. When they built, so I have a friend who worked on the original iPhone, and right now he knows he's probably halfway running the company. But back then he was a new engineer. And when they brought people in to like focus group about developing the iPhone, they didn't bring people in and say, hey, what do you love about your phone? Because we want to make a better one. They said, what do you hate that your phone can't do? And people say, oh, I hate that I don't have a calculator. I hate that it's hard for me to look at things online. I wish I could send people pictures better, or all these things, whatever they did. And that's what went into the product roadmap for how they built the iPhone. So it's good to know why people won't buy from you, because you can actually unveil a lot. And these are great exercises to do with people, like with groups, I should say. So if you have, if you're a solopreneur, if you have family or friends that understand your business enough that they can kind of give you good feedback, going through a lot of this exercise with people is good because you get multiple perspectives. Because again, we all know it in our own head, but when you say it out loud, it's like that thing, you come in, you're like, I know what I'm going to say, and then you start speaking and it doesn't come out like what you wanted it to be. Like, that's why it's good to kind of have collaboration. Now, the last one on this section of the knowing your customer is I want you to know, and I mean like the top, the best. Don't do it. I mean, you can prioritize like from ABC as far as, but I want you to ask, what is the absolute top thing you want your customer to experience because of this product? So are they going to become more efficient in their day or work life? Are they going to increase their sales or their profitability? Are they going to have more fun and relaxation? Are they going to get better insights into their industry, or maybe something else? Pick one, because that is going to speak to the highest level of value of what you bring when you focus on that value proposition. Again, what we all do is we get muddy and we say, well, I don't want to, I mean, you will get better insights, and because you get better insights, you'll be more profitable. And because you get more profitable, you're also going to have more fun and relaxation, because that, yeah, it's all byproduct. But there's one top thing as to why I should do business with any one of you that you can solve. Focus on that. And it's one of those values right there. So hone in on that. Now, before I move on, I'm going to ask again, any questions around to know your customer, any challenges that you have or thoughts? All right. Do we lose everybody?
We did,
All right.
but I'm still recording,
Okay,
so I just figured. Keep it here.
Greg, you mentioned, sometimes it's the cost of doing business. And as I think we said before, I think Alana and mentioning that you have to sometimes do the math for the people. You have to show them, okay, by investing in my services, what's the average new customer mean to you, or the average sale mean to you? And if you do the math on, because they don't automatically do that, it's a calculating return on investment.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's eye-opening. Again, it's a little difficult to promise it, but if you know the situation well enough and you know how you can affect an improvement in that situation or through your coaching, that pretty certain that you can get the job done without guaranteeing that you're going to get it done.
And sometimes I think to that point, there are just intangibles that it's hard to even put a number on, but you could say, what would it have cost you if I hadn't done this? How much better off would your life be because of it? Because if you're spending 60 hours a week working and I can cut it down to 40, that's not necessarily profitability, but it is an intangible. It's profitable in your own personal time. There's benefits to that. So it's like sometimes you almost have to work reverse in that. So again, finding those intangibles that and I think again, and depending on what type of coach you are, there probably could be more intangibles than others. Some are going to be very hard lines. Some might be a little more vague. But again, I think if you work towards being very specific, it can help you. So, I think the best advice always is try to remove yourself from the discussion. Imagine you have someone else. If Alana was going to go out and pitch Doug Weiler to success, can she do it without you having to be there? Can she do it without your personality? Can she do it without your connections? Can she do it with all those things? If she can do it, your product is buttoned up really nice and tight. If you have to be involved, that's why you get hit by a bus. It changes everything. So what you also are working for, held up. So but ultimately what you're working for here is that's where you scale. Like you can't, if it's always you, you're going to run out of time. There's only so much time that you can book for yourself. So the ability to scale is to prioritize it and answer these kinds of questions and make it a lot easier for people to do business with you. It all connects the same way as far as like simplifying stuff.
3 words, know your why.
Don't walk in front of the bus.
Don't walk.
Look both ways.
Just don't do it.
You made a very good point, because I think as we get older, I think time is more valuable than money. Okay, we need money to survive, yes, but time is really a big deal. To a lot of these professionals, right? Right, you can't, and they probably are successful, have money, it means this and that, so that efficiency for them, quality of life, whatever it is, I mean, that time back to their family, however they spend it is important to them. Yeah.
Well, you talk about like your experience, I mean, like a lot of people in healthcare, there's a high burnout rate.
Big time. Yeah,
big
sure,
time.
yes.
And everything that we're doing, we're all passionate about what we're doing, but it's still possible to get burned out. I mean, I can tell you, I go through burnout because it's just like, oh my gosh, like I love it, but it is wearing me out because there's just so much of it. And then there's just start feeling like you're starting over all the time. So, part of me, I use the phrase eat your own cooking, is that's why I give you this advice, because that's why I adopted the product mode of my own stuff, because I was always going to consulting package. This again, I get my bus, changes everything. So that's why I started building more productizing my own stuff, because I'm like, wait a minute, like if I can remove myself from the situation, it's going to be a win-win for everybody. Because also the other problem is that I work with a lot of higher clients, a lot of the higher medium sized kind of businesses that I work with. But I see people that are in the small space. I love the SMB space. I love the SMB space. That's to your point about corporate America. Like that's why I didn't want to be in corporate America anymore, because it didn't feel good to get a win the way it does when you're working with the SMB space. But I can't afford at my time, I can't afford to scale to support everybody that I want to support. So that's why I had to go to the product mode. So again, everybody should be going in that direction, because that's an opportunity for you to scale in a different way and help more people. I mean, if I can help more people that can do it for $30 or $100 versus thousands of dollars, like that's a win. So any other comments or thoughts before we go on to the last section? All right, well, this is the kind of the final piece around knowing your customer experience. So you know why you build your product, you know why your customer will or will not want to do business with you. But what is it you want them to feel? So I asked 2 questions. List 3 words that describe the excitement they want someone to feel when they buy from you. Again, think about, Apple's such a great example. They do so many things right. You get excited about buying a new computer or a new phone or whatever. And sometimes you hate that you have to do it, you go and spend the money. But at the same time, it's a shiny new object, it's all new tech. There's something fun about it. You buy a new car, the same thing, you get excited, it's all new. What do you want your clients to feel when they buy from you? Like before they've even worked with you, but just the idea that they get to do work with you. What is that feeling, that excitement that you want them to have? You can kind of think about that. I asked for 3 words because this all kind of goes into the final exercise. And then I ask you to describe the comfort or relief that you want your customers to feel. Now, again, this could be by the time they're done working with you or whatever, and you can verge it whatever way you want. But we also get relief. If we're overwhelmed and we can hire an employee, now I got somebody I can lean on to help with this. Our car is breaking down every day. We buy a new car. Okay, now it's one less stress in my life that I have to worry about. Sure, I got a new bill, but I was paying car repairs nonstop, so it's worth it for me to have that new car. So it's like, think about the relief that you bring to your customers, and think about so again, everyone that you're doing business with, they're stuck somewhere. They're going to meet you. You're going to tell them your value proposition and what you do and what you specialize in. And first thing is they're going to be relieved that, oh, wow, like they get me, like they knew that's exactly the problem I have. So they feel a little bit of relief. Then if they do buy from you and do business with you, you want them to feel that relief because of that purchase, because they feel good about it. Like I'll use Dave Thomas from Wendy's always talked about the most important 2 bites in a sandwich are the first bite and the last bite, because that's what people remember when they eat. So the same thing here. I do business with you. I signed you up today. What do I want you to feel? Like you want to feel relief that, man, now I've got a plan, now I have this going on. And then when we're done, going back to the phased approach around how you identify when this is complete, at what stage or whatever, how do you want them to feel at that point? Because you want them to be excited, you want them to refer you to others, you want them to keep working with you to go to that next level if possible. So what is that feeling supposed to be like? So kind of go through that exercise of thinking through that. And what you'll get to is if you flip around to the back, here's what I ask people to do. This is kind of the final thing, and this takes time. And this will take years in some cases, because what happens is that you're gonna think you've got it, and then the business is gonna change, or the market's gonna change, or something's gonna change, and you're gonna have to revamp it. Or you're gonna find a certain word that you can just use a little bit different that makes it more concise. Again, a lot of people, when they think about their value proposition, they go for really clever things. They want to have some catchy slogan kind of thing. I heard one the other day, it was they said problem solved. I had no idea what problem. I got a lot of problems. Like, what problem is solved by working with you? I actually thought they were an acquisition, like a mergers and acquisition company. It took about 5 minutes for me to understand, oh no, they go around buying people's houses. And I had no idea who I was talking to. You know, it was just like, it was like, I'm like, wait a minute, like how it took a long time to get there. And this was like, I was just at an event and this happened. So it's like, you know, it's going to take time, it's going to take refreshing. And with each new product, you need to go through this exercise, because I'll give you another example of a client here in town, a friend of mine. They own a business that they've been doing industrial building work for 30 years, 30 plus years in the area. They wanted to build an e-commerce store. And so I started talking to them about it. Okay, but I warned them, it is a different business model. Just because you're selling it online and because it's online doesn't mean it's a get rich quick scheme. It is still a different business model, and you have to manage it that way. They listened, yes, aha, yeah, I get it, but then they still didn't follow it. And then that didn't last more than 6 months before it was shut down. Whereas I have other clients who do an e-commerce model and they're wildly successful. It's because they're just dedicated to the idea that they had to do it differently. I've had doctors that have come in and started a vitamin store because they just wanted something to like kind of help as an upsell to their clients. They treat it as a different model. They hire different employees. They did an entire different thing. So again, like just because you're launching a new product in a space you're familiar with, the space you know, doesn't mean you can sell it the same way that you did a few years ago, because the market could be different or the value prop of that particular product could be different. So what I ask you to do is to go through and write out your value proposition. And what I have is a scoring. It's a personal scoring thing just for you to try to like get it concise. So I have this thing around like, you know, if you can do it in less than 10 words, that's good. If you can do it in less than 7, it's great. If you can do it in less than 5, it's excellent. You do it in less than 3 or less, you're a rock star at this. And it's hard to get there. You know, I mean, even 1,000 songs in your pocket wasn't 3 words. So it's like, but there are some 3-word value propositions out there that are just like they hit so well. So go through the exercise, make sure you don't skip these things, and then go through and just write it out, like, you know, and keep working on it and then test it. Speak to people and be like, you know, I mean, if you're at a networking event, you've got hundreds of people that you can blow it on. You know, I mean, you might not get it right. I mean, at the end of the day, so you didn't say it exactly the way it really could have been. You're going to see that in the reaction that they give you, the visual cues that they're going to get. And then there's going to be the people that say, oh yeah, tell me more about that. And they're not saying it just to be polite, they're saying it because they're interested, because you just spoke to something that matters to them. So it's like, you know, and there's a difference there. You know, there's the polite, oh yeah, and then there's the, oh yeah, tell me more. You know, like, there's just a different energy to that. So that's really, if you do this, start on one product, and then you can start building out. It takes time. Like I said, this is not an easy fix, but it is something that I promise you will be highly effective for you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Because it's also for someone who's starting a business, it's going to help you define a lot of stuff. There are people that have been in business for 10 years that probably never gone through an exercise like this that could benefit from doing it. You do it from the start, you're that much better off later. So, any questions before I got one more song for you to play for you, and then I'll let you go. My music.
And Greg, just to emphasize, you made the comment, but you know, something like this, I have found, and I coach people to revisit it. Don't just set it and forget it and keep,
Absolutely.
I mean, things change, like you said, maybe your market changes, things in the market change. Things that you're doing may change. So you need to revisit this periodically and don't be afraid to make changes.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I have another, I work with a lot of healthcare companies. So I have another healthcare company as that example. They've been doing it for probably about almost 20 years. And they are very successful, but what they're trying to do now is actually take a lot of what they're like a data analytics for healthcare. They're trying to create more standalone products now so that they can again kind of remove their workforce from it and just being something you can just kind of do it on your own. They were giving me their value props and I'm like, it's like, if I went to every hospital website in the country, every doctor's office, they all say the same thing, increase patient outcomes or improve patient outcomes or whatever. It's all the same stuff. So one of the things we're working on with them, we're not quite there yet, but we're kind of on to, you know, this idea of prove your patients get better. Because for them, that's really what they're about. Like in a lot of the healthcare space, you know, the healthcare workers are afraid of it. They don't want a microscope on them. Like they've got a lot of pressure already. And now when they feel like you're using this data and see, are you doing a good job? We want to switch that around and we're not coming in to kind of like microscope watch you and see what you're doing wrong. We want to come in and actually advocate for you. But the only way we can advocate for you is if we know the data. And otherwise we can't do it. So that is kind of helping us shift that conversation a little bit because we're talking more about that idea versus the old one, which was just, again, it sounded scary to people. It sounded like a lot of work too. Like, oh, I don't want to just come in and collect all this data, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of making it more proactive and that's being a game changer. All right, I'm gonna give you one more because again, for the coaching audience here, we'll see how this goes.
You do encores if we like.
Oh, well, let's see. I mean, well, I can do some Ozzy, so we can pull that out. We gotta see what I know. I wrote my own music for years, so it's like I actually did not learn a lot of covers because for me, I didn't enjoy playing covers for people. It was if you came and saw me, I wanted it to be for the songs I wrote. Even if that meant 3 people in the room, I'd rather have 3 people than 1,000 because I could play a cover really well. So the cool thing about doing this is I get to kind of combine the two. I can play some covers that people enjoy and they know the hook, but I can write my own lyrics to it and make it a little bit more fun. So it's like a best of both worlds as far as making that work. So let's see. Don't help me get. I have a cold. By the way. And of course it hit today. And I was like, don't make it unsolved. It's all right, thank you.
Where can we get that album?
Got my mailing list. It's simple. By the way, I will mention, we were doing announcements before, but I do a thing that's called a marketing deconstruct. And what it is that I just basically it's an hour one-on-one where I go through and kind of just help you identify like what are you going to market your products? What are some opportunities? What are some things that could do or differently? Anything like that is kind of just like a really good in-depth deep dive into what you're doing. So I'm doing a promotion this month where I'm charging $300 for those. It's a Zoom call for an hour. And again, really effective way just for you to have a second set of eyes on what you're doing. So if you're interested in the information on that. Thank you. All right, excellent.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Well done.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Great, wow.